Hello, friends. There are people joining in, but let's begin with our first contact session of the day for this course. Now, to talk about what do we begin with today, we would be hearing two talks from two different eminent personalities. Just to give you what each will talk to us and where they are, who they are, and what they've talked to, I will talk about them a little bit, and then I hand it over to Professor Kitawaki, who has already joined us, and he was going through the videos as I see. So there, I'll hand it over to Professor Kitawaki. Just a few seconds I'll take. When it comes to sanitation, it becomes imperative to know its history and how it has evolved over the decades. The history of sanitation is important of several crucial reasons, you may say: public health, disease control and eradication, urbanization and city planning, societal and environmental impacts, technological advancements, and then taking them to the lessons of future, understanding the cultural and social factors, global health and development, etc. The history of sanitation is essential as it highlights the impact of proper sanitation on public health, disease control, urbanization, technology, and also the environment. By learning from the past, we can continue to improve sanitation practices and work towards a healthier and more sustainable future. And to make us understand it in a more easier way, we have Professor Hidetoshi Kitawaki from University of Tokyo. He is the Faculty of International Studies at Toyo University and is the Director of Research Center for Global Symbiosis. His field of interest is generally environmental health in developing countries, where water supply in developing countries, and also waste treatment. He is graduated from the Department of Urban Engineering, Faculty of Engineering from the University of Tokyo, did his master's and postgraduate from that same university. And after that, he worked as a visiting associate professor in the Department of Environmental Health. He has worked with World Health Organization headquarters, Japan Sewerage Design Company Limited, and is also a visiting associate professor in the Faculty of Engineering of University of Tokyo. This was one, we will go down to him. But before I go down to him and hand over the mic to him, I would also like to see in the second part of our talk today, our session today, we would like to know a little bit more about the city-wide inclusive sanitation approach, which is an integrated and comprehensive approach to address sanitation challenges in urban areas. It emphasizes inclusivity, sustainability, and social equity in the planning and implementation of sanitation services. The several reasons could actually be given why is it important that the urban areas should adopt a CWIS approach. It could be public health and hygiene, social equity and inclusivity, environmental sustainability, resilience to climate change, which is a very need of the time, economic benefits, integrated planning, sustainable and meeting the sustainable development goals, engaging the community and building an ownership around them, and of course, innovation and technology. Having said that, I would welcome Professor V. Srinivasachari, who is the director of ASCII, and he is an urban environmental planner and public health engineer with over 2 decades of experience in urban infrastructure services, governance, reforms, and equity. He specializes also in water, environmental sanitation services in urban areas. And his portfolio spans from policy, program, capacity development, and knowledge management projects for national, state, and city governments. So Professor Chari, in the later part of our session, will take us through these concepts of CWIS implementation. As of now, I hand over the scepter to Professor Kitawaki. Professor Kitawaki, over to you to take us through the history of sanitation in Japan and South Asia as a whole. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. I hope everybody can hear me, right?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so let me share my screen, and I'd like to make presentation about the history of sanitation in Japan. Let's see. I hope. Yes. Here. Okay. Now, my topic today is the history of sanitation development in Japan, and I was requested to talk something about the situation in South Asia. However, the other people already know more than me, so I add some very specific point about South Asia because I visited Bangladesh 30 times. It's a long time. Then first, I'd like to take my opportunity to talk about 30 minutes about the history of sanitation development. I'm from Toyo University. I was working in Tokyo University, but now I'm in Toyo University. I'm professor there. What I'm going to talk today is these things. Well, I'm basically sanitary engineer. However, a sanitary engineer is talking about the history, so this is a kind of strange thing. But to begin with, I like to talk the historical classification in Japan from ancient times, early modern times, etc., up to now. Then sanitation alternatives, current sanitation alternatives in Japan, and the relationship with the history. Then I like to talk something about the sanitation ladder and South Asia cases. Okay, now coming back to the history. Okay, prehistory in Japan. Well, this is the history in Japan, but prehistory area time. It was 5th century plus minus 2 centuries. Oh, long ago, long ago. However, this kind of long history is related with the sanitation situation in Japan. So this is amazing. What happened long ago is affecting the sanitation situation or technologies in Japan. So I'm going to talk about this throughout this lecture. Then the ancient times from 5th century, then medieval times, 12th century up to 16th century, and early modern times, late modern times, and nowadays. Or in Japan, nowadays began from the year 1945, in which the World War II ended. Well, Japan was completely defeated by the war, and we reconstructed Japan from that time, including sanitation and CWIS system, water supply, etc., etc. So we call this time nowadays in Japan. Well, on the bottom of this slide, I put the classification of individual era in Japan. Well, 1868, okay, I'm talking history. By 1868, that was a time of warriors, samurai warriors, you know, they have sword and they are killing each other. That is Edo time, Edo era. Then what happened in 1868? There is a big change, like something like coup d'etat or something, the change in the enthronement or maybe power. Then the emperor took place. He had power. Then, according to the name of the emperor, the era is described. Now we are in Reiwa. So from Meiji 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 emperors took his place. So this is the history. So Japanese people are referring to the emperor's name to describe these eras. Now, this is chapter 2. This is about ancient and medieval times, long ago. Well, very interesting thing happened in 6th century. I think Buddhism began in India or in Nepal, and there is a very long distance in between India and Japan, but Buddhism was transferred to Japan in 6th century. And that time, the Buddhism was very strict, and they banned to eat animal meat. Then sometimes it was prohibited to eat animal meat, and people were mainly eating vegetables. They were eating vegetables. And the protein they were allowed to eat was fish. But they mainly ate vegetables. Then they needed fertilizers. However, that time, 6th century, 7th century, they didn't have chemical fertilizer. So they began to use human excreta as fertilizer. This is a big event. Well, learning from them, we have a lot of things to describe. Well, before agricultural use of human excreta, Japanese people were using overhang latrine called kawa ya. This is Japanese word. Kawa means river. Ya means superstructure. So it means overhang latrine. They were using overhang latrine before agricultural use of human excreta. However, as human excreta was began to be used as a fertilizer, then it's a very important commodity. They were selling human excreta. So disposal into water was avoided. Instead, they began to use vault toilet in which they can store human excreta. Well, in case of pit latrine, okay, there is leakage to the ground, and they lose important nitrogens into the ground. Groundwater is polluted. However, they can use the pit for a long time, but they are losing human excreta into ground. So to avoid that one, they wanted to use human excreta. So they used water toilet with lined bottom. So this is a big change. And if they were using vault toilet, there was no groundwater contamination, and the stored human excreta is emptied and used for agriculture. And open defecation was not so common because human excreta was a variable commodity, and overhang latrine decreased. And in case of Buddhism, the religion's belief is different from other religions, and there was no taboo to use human excreta as fertilizer. And agricultural use of human excreta became widespread in 20th century, maybe 800 years back. By that time, human excreta was used widely. And transmission route of Buddhism. Well, I don't know if you agree or not, but my understanding, Buddhism was transmitted from India through into Chinese peninsula, through Korea to Japan. And the transmission route of Buddhism is the same as the area where human excreta is used as fertilizer. So this is coincidence. So this is very interesting phenomenon, I think. And another thing, this is my hypothesis. My hypothesis is this: East Asian people, including myself, okay, traditionally Japanese people and East Asian people do not shake hands with somebody when they meet. And European people shake hands. However, East Asian people do not shake hands. I think that is because they were using human excreta in agriculture and their hand may be polluted. So this is to prevent transmission of fecal oral disease. But this is my hypothesis. Okay, now coming to Edo era, which is beginning from 1603 and it ended in 1868. So this is a kind of medieval time, and a shogun was ruling over, and people were leading a life not very free. But that time, this is the apartment house in Tokyo. Well, that time, Tokyo was called Edo. Edo is old name of Tokyo. And that time there are apartment houses, and there was an independent toilet, because this is a vault toilet and it's smelly, of course. And sometimes the housefly larvae are there, or it's very, very dirty. So, vault toilet was outside the houses, was just like toilets in African countries. And if they have pit latrines, the toilets are independent outside the houses. So Here, there are vault toilet, and there is landowner and tenants, and the tenants were using this toilet, and the human excreta of tenants. It was a property of the landlord. Can you imagine? The landlord owns the human excreta of the toilet of the apartment houses, and the landlord is selling human excreta to farmers or some kind of vendors. And point learned from this time. Well, vault toilets without leaching, were constructed because human excreta was a valuable commodity, as I said. Then, fortunately, less groundwater pollution was there. And traders of human excreta purchased excreta, or like this. They were purchasing human excreta and bringing it by boats or by others to the farmland, and these vendors were selling human excreta. So it was a commodity. And this is very, very important aspect, which is leading to now. Please remember this word, jokaso. The meaning, this is Japanese, and meaning is this. Joka means purification. So means tank. And this is purification tank of human excreta and gray water. And who maintain jokaso? This is on-site sanitation system. And if they introduce on-site system, somebody should maintain it. Of course, partly the users maintain. However, there should be some professionals who should manage the on-site system. So these people, traders of human excreta, they exist in a large number, and they were trained, and they get qualification of jokaso maintenance people, and they are maintaining jokasos up to now. Why jokaso is successful? Because there was supply chain of human excreta, and these people who were carrying human excreta should not lose their job after the introduction of jokaso. So the government made a lot of regulations and laws so that they will not lose their job. They created qualifying system of jokaso maintenance system, and they are maintaining jokasos very well. That's one of the secret of success of jokaso. Well, lesson learned. Okay, when they were using human excreta as fertilizer, of course, there was a problem of ascariasis and parasite hookworm and other diseases. And of course, there are housefly breeding, and they transmit fecal oral infection diseases, etc. So, well, this another Japanese word, mushi, means worm. Well, Japanese saying include a lot of mushi. For example, mushi in abdomen is noisy. That means or something wrong may happen, etc. Well, in this way, well, there are a lot of saying or idioms, words, including mushi. That means that time, most of Japanese people had mushi in the intestine. Okay, so this is a bad aspect of human excreta use as fertilizer. But on the contrary, good aspect is it's kind of recycling society, and they had a lot of fertilizer, etc. So there are pros and cons, but there are good aspects and bad aspects. And here, therefore, Japanese traditional cooking, the vegetables are all heated because the vegetables had ascaris eggs, roundworm eggs. So they had to cook thoroughly. Okay, so this is true in Japanese dishes and Chinese dishes. All they are cooking vegetables before eating. And in European countries, they eat raw vegetables. However, in European countries, they have a lot of cattle, and the cattle dungs are available. Then human excreta is not used in agriculture in European countries. That's why vegetables can be eaten raw. But in case of salad, they use salad dressing with oil and vinegar. Oil is detergent and vinegar is disinfectant. Then in this way, European people are making vegetables safe to drink. But in Japan, Asian countries, they are cooking or heating. The basic diagram, nowadays we have a lot of F diagram of fecal oral infection, but this is a very traditional good. It is 3. And there are 6 routes from person to person, direct one, and through water, through soil, and meat, and snails, and mosquito, which breed in the dirty water. So there are 6 items. Okay, and ascariasis is the soil-borne disease. Well, as they were using human excreta and they were eating contaminated food, and the ascaris egg hatches, and it comes to the heart and lung and causes pneumonitis. Then, with the sputum, they swallow it again, and the worm becomes adult. And they lay eggs, and the eggs go into the environment. And after 1 or 2 weeks, they become mature, and became infectious. Then it goes to the next person. So this is a life cycle of ascariasis. And the heavy infection, this, and bad agriculture practice is to put human excreta on the surface. Then in rainy season, there is shower, and it jumps, ascaris egg jump into vegetables. So it happened everywhere when Japan was using human excreta. However, when they began to use chemical fertilizer, this one disappeared. Well, about cholera, dysentery, typhoid fever, well, I'm talking about the Meiji era, beginning from 1868. Well, our university, Toyo University, was created in the year 1887, this year. However, just 1 year before my university was established, I mean 1886, more than 100,000 people were killed by cholera in Japan. So can you believe? Many people were killed by cholera. Well, that time, why Japan was suffering from cholera? Because 1868, around 1868, Japan opened its country. Before Meiji or in Edo era, Japan closed its gate to the world. It's isolated, self-isolation. However, Japan opened its countries, and a lot of people from outside Japan came to Japan with some diseases, sometimes virus, sometimes worm, sometimes protozoa or bacteria, etc. Then in Meiji era, well, outbreak of these diseases were very severe. Okay, many diseases were there. And for that time, Japan tried to put some kind of jokaso or treatment facilities. So this is the first jokaso made in Tokyo Station. Well, our Japanese people were used to use vault toilet. However, foreigners, especially European people, they liked to have a water flush toilet. Therefore, the first jokaso or on-site treatment system was made in Tokyo Station with a septic tank plus a treatment filter. So that was early 20th century in Taisho era here. Okay. Since that time, Showa era was as long as 64 years. Then, this is the statistics. The blue one is the number of patients with waterborne diseases, and the green one and the dark blue one, This is cover rate of piped water supply system. So in advent of piped water system, then waterborne disease decreased and infant mortality decreased and cholera was under control. So it looks happy. However, if we supply water, then 99% of supplied water becomes wastewater. And that wastewater goes to the river and the rivers are polluted. So the river water pollution became peak in around the 1970s. Okay. After that time, sewage system and on-site system was constructed, but the time lag means the river water pollution. Well, river water is polluted because the cover rate increase curve and cover rate increase curve of sewage. Okay, I repeat, the logistic curve of water supply and the logistic curve of sanitation. There is time lag. During the time lag, water is polluted. Then after some time, water is becoming cleaner and cleaner. So this is what we call environment Kuznets curve. So grow dirty, then clean up. Now, lesson learned. Why piped water supply reduced waterborne disease? Well, today I'm talking about sanitation, but water supply is quite related. That's why I'm talking this. Piped water supply enables to use soap. Okay, hand washing will eliminate diseases. However, to wash hand with the soap, okay, running water is very important. Otherwise, soaps are very sticky and very difficult to use stored water for hand washing. So, piped water supply enabled the use of soap. And hand were cleaned, waterborne disease decreased. However, as I said, rivers were polluted. Okay, and when we talk about willingness to pay, well, water supply is okay, but sanitation, nobody want to pay. Okay, as for health aspect, sanitation is as well important. And let me talk about Myanmar's success story. I was talking with His Excellency Minister of Health of Myanmar. That time he said he decided toilet construction day, and there was some kind of a quota for each village to construct toilet. And he said in the village where they constructed the designated number of toilet, then the government will construct drinking water wells free of charge. So wells are something like carrot in front of a horse. To make horse run, there's some incentive like carrot. And the government promised to construct wells. So people wanted to have wells. Then people reluctantly or happily, I don't know, but people constructed toilet in the designated number. So amazingly, what happened was in the village where they constructed the toilet, diarrhea disease disappeared even before the construction of wells. That is what I call Myanmar's success story. So to make sanitation widespread, we need some incentives. And this is about the willingness to pay. And cost, benefit, willingness to pay. Food, maybe 40% of living expenditure they want to pay. And because cost is borne by self, benefit comes the same person, so willingness to pay is very high. Water supply, electricity, gas, the same. However, sanitation. Well, we pay, of course, but the benefit go to public, so it's very low. So we are in a difficult situation. However, we have to do. We have to think about many ideas like Myanmar's success story. Present time. Well, Japan enjoyed the rapid economic growth in the 50s. Chemical fertilizer became widespread and they are not using human excreta anymore. Then human excreta should be treated at night soil treatment plant or FSTP, fecal stack treatment plant. And well, there is a very famous film, and this is in Japanese, but if you have time, you can click here and watch the movie about how they manage the problems of human excreta. This is described in this film. Chapter 6, sanitation alternatives. Well, when we classify, I think you are experts. And well, classification of sanitation is wet and dry, on-site or off-site. Okay, of course, people's priority is first wet off-site like sewage system. However, waste on-site like jokaso or maybe poor flush toilet, they are acceptable. And dry off-site, well, this is a kind of a board toilet plus treatment at fecal slide treatment plant. Okay, so dry offsite was widespread, and still there are this system in Japan. And the one we do not have in Japan is dry on-site system like pit latrine. Well, there are alternatives, and jokasos are here, and vault toilet is on the bottom. And in case of jokaso, the combined one with human excreta and gray water, this is nowadays 100% for new ones. However, there are existing non-conforming technologies. It was legal, but now it's not legal. Well, this one is treating only human excreta, and gray water is going to the environment. This was allowed, but now we do not have this one as a new alternatives. Existing ones are tolerated to use. Well, this is history because first they paid more attention on health. That's why they at least they treated human excreta. But in 21st century, the on-site sanitation system was handed over from Ministry of Health to Ministry of the Environment. Then they are taking care of the environment as well. Then they are also treating gray water. Well, this is the vault toilet. And well, this is improved one, ventilated, improved vault toilet. And this is not very smelly. Then it can be installed inside the household. So its privacy is better, but still people wanted to have a water flush toilet. And this is the reason, well, lesson learned, okay, about jokasos. Well, they first constructed simple jokaso which treat only human excreta, but they are still in use. So gray water from this equipment is going to the environment, and this is polluting the environment. And this one I have already mentioned. The Ministry of Health and Welfare was in charge of well, on-site system, but it was handed over to the Ministry of Environment because the river pollution should be controlled by treating gray water as well. And well, this was also mentioned earlier. A successful reason of operation and maintenance of well, on-site system because human excreta collectors were trained and became qualified jokaso operators. They can check what well, treated water quality, and they are supplying disinfectant, etc. Okay. Let's see. I think, yes. Now we are facing the problem of combined system because this is well, simpler and this is cheaper. However, well, in case of rain, there is overflow from outfall. Okay, so this is well, overflowing well, sewage water to the river. So now Japan is well, trying to separate the combined sewer to stormwater and sanitary sewer, but this is a quite complicated one. And nowadays, I'm giving this lecture from this building, number 8 building of Toyo University, and just in front there is the road, and well, Tokyo Metropolitan Government here have such kind of drawings, and this shows where is what, okay, like manholes, etc. So we have such system to maintain on-site, off-site system. So nowadays we have on-site system like Jokaso and CWIS, of course. And this is the sanitation ladder. And as I said, I visited Bangladesh for a long time. And I took this picture on the bottom left. This is overhang latrine, and this is improved to ring latrines. And the manufacturer of ring latrines, they were kind of community-based organization, and they earned money, and they, as they can earn money, they became promoter of improvement. Then gradually they are improving. So this system is similar to Japanese history, because we used to use overhang latrine long ago, but now we have on-site system and off-site system. So for improvement in this way is important. Okay, now this is the end of my short presentation about half hour. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Professor Kitawaki. I would encourage the participants, if they have any questions, any queries, to put up, raise their hands and put up. Yes, Frank, you had some question.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let me say that the presentation was very interesting and impressive, and it also teaches many lessons. So I want to thank the presenter. My question is, I noticed that in the presentation they used many Japanese idiomatic words or language. I want to know if these words should be translated in English. Maybe they will lose meaning or not. I want to understand why they didn't use English words rather than the Japanese words.
Okay. So the words in italic is or Japanese. For example, joka. So this is Japanese people want to make it the international word. Okay, joka means purification, so means tank. So this is a wet on-site system. They have a flash toilet, and it's treated in joka. So this is a wastewater purification tank. Is it clear?
Okay, yes, I understand better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Questions? Any other questions? Any other queries from any of the participants?
There's in the chat box, there is a question. Why septage is called night soil? What is the history of night soil?
Okay. Yes. Well, I think this comes from other countries, because human excreta is smelly, so they collected the human excreta at night. That's why it's called night soil. Does it make sense? Okay.
Are there any other questions?
If there are no questions, I'd hand it over to Professor Chari to take the conversation forward. And
thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So I think there's a very powerful message from Professor Kitawaki's presentation of Japan. If you see, Japan is a very advanced country. However, they went through a revolution, a gradual incremental improvement over a period of time. As he explained, sanitation cannot be done overnight. They started with using the night soil for agriculture application. Then they had some health problems. Then they introduced what is called Jokaso system, which is on-site system, like septic tanks. The early Jokaso system, on-site system, used to focus on only night soil and gray water, that is the washings from bathroom, kitchen, used to bypass the Jacasa system and used to go into the water bodies. Then they came up with an advanced version of Jacasa system, which is a combined treatment of both black water and the gray water. That's an advanced treatment system, on-site system. And till 2000, the gray water used to go into the water bodies directly, as per his presentation. And now, for densely populated areas, they are going for a sewer system. Now, when they started this sewer system, they had a combined sewer system, both storm water, that is rainwater, as well as water coming out of wastewater coming out of houses. It was a combined system. Same pipelines were used to carry this wastewater. And then now they have a separate system for black sewage and a separate system for stormwater drain. So what is the message? The message is that sanitation is a ladder. You can't jump the ladder from level 1 to level 10 overnight, especially when you have challenges of water supply, challenges of revenues, challenges of human capital. So that's the reason I think is a very, very powerful lesson what history can teach us. Of course, we don't have to go through the same level of steps. We can actually improve it. We can go for an incremental improvement. But I think it's important to understand the process that is involved. And one need not feel disheartened with the level of sanitation that we have. We are going through an incremental improvement. Even developed economies like Japan till 2000 was not treating the used water, the wastewater. So I think it's an evolution. So I think we are doing well, but the question is about how do you accelerate the journey? How do you move fast for gaining public health? And that's what I think is the citywide inclusive sanitation is all about. The challenges many of our economies have is that unlike probably like Japan, the population may have, Mr. Raji, if you could, yeah, the population may be a bit homogeneous. The economy may be better off, but in our case, we may have some segment of population living in extreme poverty, living in slums. The question is, how do you provide sanitation for all? For overall public health is something very peculiar, challenging that all our economies, all our countries would experience, which is maybe slightly different from Japan. So it's all the more reason we need to start understanding citywide inclusive sanitation approaches, which we are going to discuss now. So the next half an hour, 40 minutes of my conversation is basically about getting the fundamentals right. Not that we don't know, not that we don't understand, but I think bringing a common understanding among all of us. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start from basics and gradually build on so that different backgrounds that we have in this group would align themselves and we have a common understanding. So as part of this session, I would be speaking about a quick overview, some technicalities of urban sanitation. I'll be discussing a bit on non-sewer sanitation, an equivalent of Jocasta, what Professor Kitawaki mentioned, fecal sludge septage management, and also I'll introduce to citywide inclusive sanitation and its relevance for the countries that we are all coming from and the cities that we are all coming from. Now, what is sanitation? Sanitation is about provisioning of facilities and services for the safe disposal of human urine and feces. Sanitation is about facilities and services for safe disposal of human urine and feces. But sanitation also refers to maintaining hygienic conditions in our community through disposal of garbage and wastewater. So to summarize sanitation, it has 4 elements: excreta management, wastewater management, municipal solid waste systems, and stormwater drainage. All this contributes to the sanitation agenda. All this contributes to lack of good quality public health. However, the high risk elements in this are excreta management and wastewater management. And this course, this particular citywide inclusive sanitation program would focus on these 2 elements. We will not be discussing about garbage management or the stormwater management, except in a couple of sessions we will refer to. The Sustainable Development Goal 6.2, which is squarely focusing on sanitation, has defined, as Professor Kitawaki mentioned, it's not just about toilet. It should be toilet in individual houses, which is not shared by different group of people. It is in the individual house that they live in, number 1. Number 2, the excreta has to be managed either in situ, treated and disposed in situ. In situ means at the same location, or stored temporarily and emptied and transported to an off-site location, or transported through a sewer system with wastewater and then treated off-site. So the Sustainable Development Goals speak of two, 3 important points. Number 1, there has to be a toilet provision at home, not a public convenience, is not defined as a compliance, number 1. Number 2, the excreta has to be treated and disposed at the site, or it has to be stored in the septic tanks or in the temporary storage facilities, and then taken to a treatment plant like a fecal sludge treatment plant, or you put up a sewer system and then treat it off-site. In any of these options can be considered as safely managed sanitation. And a subcomponent of it is that the hygiene track, which is about hand washing facility with soap and water on premises, within the toilet premise. If I can bring these 2 elements together, 6.2.1a and 6.2.1b, the public health will improve. And that's the agenda that we are all committed to. So our aspiration as city managers, as sector professionals who are deeply committed to sanitation, is provisioning of safely managed sanitation for public health and environmental quality improvement, not for rich, not only for middle class, but for everyone, including the vulnerable population, the poorest of the poor, and particular focus on women and children. And it should not be only for select pockets, it has to be citywide. If I improve the situation in one zone by providing a sewer system and ignore the rest of the area, the cities can have diseases. You may have a gold-plated solution, but if you don't cover the whole city, then the city suffers from disease. We have in India a number of cases, the pandemics and episodes, where the city may have a sewer system partially, but rest of the area was not covered properly. Hygiene was not taken care of. Hence, the city suffered. Whether it is a rich or poor, everybody suffers. Like COVID, like pandemic that we all went through. Everybody had to be vaccinated so that everybody becomes safe. If half the population is vaccinated and the rest of the half is not vaccinated, everybody is not safe. So it's very, very important to look at universalizing the sanitation through city-wide inclusive sanitation approach. Everybody has to be covered so that all of us would be safe. Partial coverage is not the solution. While implementing it, you can have a gradual approach. So the CWIS program, currently we are focusing on human waste and liquid waste management. Now this provisioning of this safe sanitation, as Professor Kitawaki mentioned, can be through a combination of solutions. As I said, we can provide centralized solutions. We can provide decentralized solutions in certain pockets, decentralized collection and treatment with a DWAT system, or we can have on-site systems like a Jocasso system he mentioned. It could be a septic tank, it could be a twin pit toilet, leach pits. The whole idea is to have prevention of open defecation and safe sanitation. Sanitation improvement is not always through one technology or one system. We can use any of these systems, but still get public health benefits. And that is the beauty of citywide inclusive sanitation approach. Our focus is not about technology. Our focus is about improving the sanitation service delivery and public health outcomes. And that technology could be anything. It could be a sewerage. It could be a non-sewer systems. Now, sewerage is good, no doubt about it, but it is capital intensive. It requires huge volume of water. How much volume do we need for sewerage? Minimum. What is the norm we use? How much water we require? Anybody would like to comment? To run a good sewer system, how much of water you require per capita? So you need a minimum of, different countries have different standards, but by and large, globally, you need to have about 135 to 150 liters per capita per day. You need large volume of water to keep the sewer systems running, to flush the waste. And that level of water availability is a big question, especially in the context of water crisis that we have. So that's where globally, especially in our economies, sewerage system has not expanded except in big cities. It requires large amount of water. It requires huge capital investment. You need to dig open the road, put the pipeline, cover the pipeline, and you need to do periodic maintenance. You need energy to pump the water up and down, wastewater up and down. And you need treatment systems where, again, a lot of energy and cost is involved. And the skill requirement is also very high. So given this situation, many of our countries could not expand the centralized sewerage system. That's a hard reality. The hard reality is that not every location, not every city, not every community have adequate water of 135 to 150 liters per capita per day. We may not have budgets. We may not have skilled human resources. And very importantly, we may not have operation and maintenance cost budgets. Given this hard reality of life, many of our countries, Bangladesh, Nepal, India, African countries, we go for what is called on-site systems. On-site system, in India, we have what is called a Clean India mission, wherein the governments have chosen a very deliberate strategy of providing on-site systems for improving the quality of life, for preventing open defecation and public health improvements. Because we realize that sewer systems may or may not get us the immediate benefit. We can't wait for generations, decades to get the sanitation improvement. So in India, they have chosen the path of on-site sanitation systems. Now, the on-site systems means toilet with a system of septic tanks or a twin pits, two-pit leach pits is good. However, it has its own challenges. And that's what we mean by, is this provision of toilet, is it good enough to get public health? As you saw in the video, it's not good enough. We need to do beyond to get what is called safely managed sanitation. So we need periodic evacuation of these on-site systems, like even Jocasso, the Japanese system, which is one of the finest technology on-site systems. they require annual desludging of the septic tanks or of the Jocasso system, annual desludging. They require quarterly maintenance. So if I go back to India, then Bangladesh and our context, the septic tanks and pit latrines, they have to be periodically evacuated. Otherwise, the sludge will bulk. And it has to be safely collected, safely transported, and safely disposed. This video I have shown was one of the cities that we were working. This was a pre-project situation. The private desludgers without safety equipment, of course, it is mechanized. They used to collect the waste, and then this lethal septage, which is coming out of the septic tank, is discharged without treatment into the water bodies, into open areas. And this is a common practice. At least this was a common practice in most parts of the country and the region, I would say. The septage is much more nastier than a diluted sewage. Now, this has pathogens, it has organic loading, and this requires proper safe management. And that is what we are now looking at. While on-site systems are good, we need to look at it in totality. Hence, we have introduced what is called a comprehensive sanitation improvement program, which all of us have started now, which is about not just provisioning of toilets, but safe containment, safe emptying, safe transportation, treatment, and disposal and reuse. That's a starting agenda of our conversation. Now, some terminologies for us so that we are all on the same page. It's not that you don't know, all of us know, but one or two people may or may not be completely familiar. Hence, I'm taking the liberty of repeating. Sewage, we use these terms very casually, and we need to be clear about it. Sewage is a mixture of wastewater from an urban activity covering both residential and commercial properties, which has both black water and gray water. It means black water is human feces, urine. Gray water is like washings, bathroom washings, bathing, kitchen washings, all of them you mix through a pipe network, you take it out, and that mixture is called sewage. The conduit to carry this mixture is called sewerage network. Now, what is sullage? Sullage is nothing but gray water, except night soil, except black water. So sullage is wastewater from bathing, laundry, food preparation, cooking, and other personal and domestic activity. This is called sullage. Sewage has both black and gray. Sullage is only gray. What is fecal sludge? It's an undigested sludge collected from a pit latrine or a leach pit. The water gets leached into the ground. There's a bit of sludge, and the sludge gets accumulated, and then it has to be periodically taken out, and that sludge is called fecal sludge. What is septage? It's a mixture of wastewater and sludge removed from a septic tank during the cleaning operation. It's from septic tank you evacuate septage, and the fecal sludge coming out typically from pit, latrine, or leach pits, as we say. These are all used by all our countries for various sanitation toilet provisioning. And sewerage is nothing but an interconnected sewer network of pipes to push the used wastewater sewage from location A to location B, and location B, we treat it and then discharge into water bodies or downstream. These are the terminologies that all of us should be aware of. Now, very important to understand that sewage originates from human excreta and wash water, septage and fecal sludge coming from human excreta, but is channeled via septic tanks or pits. That's why it is concentrated. The characterization is different from sewage. The solid content is very different. The BOD, COD is different. The biodegradability is different. And the variability is also different. So the conventional sewage treatment plant may or may not take as it is the septage or the fecal sludge. When it comes to technology sessions, we will discuss some of those things. I just want to inform you that even septic tank is a treatment infrastructure. It is not a holding tank. It is an anaerobic digester. It is like our stomach continuously digesting. It's an anaerobic digestion. So septic tank is not bad, but it's not good enough, of course. Septic tank without an outflow, the waste coming out of it, the outlet of the septic tank should be taken to what is called a soak away or a soak pit. Without that, the septic tank is useless. Septic tank requires a soak away. But in most of our countries, the septic tank is built and the outlet is connected into a drain which carries a lot of pollution. So septic tank, let me repeat, it is a treatment infrastructure. It has to be designed well. The way sewage treatment plant is designed well, the way fecal sludge treatment plant is designed well, septic tanks also have to be designed systematically. It is in this context, most of our economies, most of our countries, most of our cities, recognizing the challenge of current sanitation situation, they have introduced what is called regulatory framework or a policy frameworks for managing sanitation. We can't allow it the way it is going, where the septic tanks are not designed well. The private operators, unregulated operators are taking the septage and dumping wherever they want and polluting the waters. There's no training. There is no medium-term planning. There's no financial allocation for sanitation. So given this ground level situations, most of our countries, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, African countries, all of us in some form or the other, they have started thinking about what we call a policy and regulatory framework for on-site safe management of septage management or fecal sludge and septage management. What are the main components? Every country, every context could be different. What are the main components that we need to ensure for improving public health, for safe management of fecal sludge and septage? Number one, design and construction of septic tanks. That is a starting point. So the regulation should ensure that every septic tank or on-site system that we build, like Jokaso system in Japan, even that system is regulated. The designs are regulated. The treatment systems are regulated. Who should be maintaining the toilet is regulated. Likewise, on-site systems require designs based on the population of the family, the size of the septic tank, the size of the on-site system should be designed. And very importantly, the outflow of the septic tank, if you can see the septic tank, it has multiple chambers. It's a design where the sludge gets settled and the overflow will go out into the liquid fraction will go out and it will go into a soak away or a soak pit. So this particular soak pit is very, very important, often not available in most of our places. If you don't have it, the outflow, the outlet liquid fraction is polluted and it creates disease burden downstream. So the first component of a good regulatory system with regard to on-site sanitation is having design norms for on-site systems, be it a septic tank or any other options that you choose. The sludge which gets accumulated, how frequently do you need to evacuate? Any thoughts? How frequently we need to take out the sludge? Any responses? What is your regulation saying? What's your regulation speaking about? Like in Bangladesh, like in India, the sludge has to be evacuated once in 3 to 5 years. In some cases, it is, yeah.
I think
Santosh.
in Burkina it is every 2 years.
Once in 2 years. Very good. Santosh.
He
Thank
says
you.
in 3 to 4 years.
3 to 4 years. So different countries have design standards. So based on their research, based on their conditions, the frequency of desludging is 1, 2 to 4 years. In some cases, as Mr. Frank said, it's 2 years. In some case, in India, it's once in 3 years. In probably Nepal, it could be once in 3 to 5 years. So based on the context, they have sort of outlined what is called the frequency. The first and the foremost thing is the regulatory framework is design and construction of septic tanks as per the design intent. In fact, in many of our cities now, we have what is called do's and don'ts. It is to communicate to the citizens how to build a septic tank, because it is often viewed as a private activity. We hire a mason, we hire a plumber. So we need to have this sort of communication to plumbers and masons, go through the training so that we get a quality on-site systems like the way Japanese have done it. In fact, this is one of the slides I'm using from Australia on the left. Even in Australia, they have a helpline for the city authority or the local body actually provides a helpline for citizens on how to go about building safe septic tanks. In Warangal, where we have been implementing citywide inclusive sanitation, we have introduced what is called S-Line. It's a toll-free number where all the information regarding the toilets, the technical assistance, the complaints, suggestions, all of them can come through this helpline. So these are the ways in which we can improve the quality of on-site sanitation system over a period of time. That's integral component of the regulatory framework. The second important thing as part of the regulation is empanelment of the masons who are constructing the septic tanks and training and certification. This is a super important step. In fact, if you ask Professor Kitawaki, he will speak about it. And in fact, Professor Hashimoto-san will also come later. Only empaneled people can handle Jokaso, and they are trained and certified. So we have in the CWIS programs in India, we have made it mandatory that the masons who are building these on-site systems are empaneled and they are certified and trained. This is a second important component of FSSM regulation. The third important component of the regulation is empanelment of the desludging operators, because this is a high-risk activity, both from health point of view as well as from disease point of view, because people sometimes enter into the septic tanks and then they get exposed to toxic gases. So they have to wear personal protective equipment. They have to have all sorts of gumboots and safety gear to make sure that they are not exposed to disease burden. Hence, we empanel the desludging operators and ensure that they are totally trained in the usage of PPEs and personal protective equipment and safety precautions. This is the third important step. So we discussed about the toilet infrastructure. Now we are looking at the desludging processes. These are all the standard operating procedures of how to do desludging. If anybody is interested, feel free, reach out to us, reach out to Josna, Dr. Banerjee. We will share with you some of the material that we have. Many of you have it, but if you want some additional material on SOP, standard operating practices for desludging, for transportation, all of that is readily available, including visuals. The collaterals for communication are also readily available. We'll be very happy. As a part of this regulation, in India now we insist on GPS tracking. Why this is important? This is important because the private desludgers can desludge and take it anywhere and everywhere they want without going to the treatment plant. So we need to track the vehicles. So the city authorities now are insisting to have GPS for the empaneled or the licensed vehicles that the city have. So this is another important component of the regulatory framework. So what are we doing? Construction regulations, desludging regulations, transportation related regulations. Then tracking it. Because it has to be desludged once in 3 years. You need to keep the data. So the mobile apps are deployed so that we punch in the data, and then like the way COVID alerts are given to us for the second dose, third dose, like that, the city should get an alert that after 2 years, your septic tank is due, on-site system is due for desludging. So for that, you need to track the desludging details as part of your good operating practices or good implementation of the FSSL program. After we transport it safely, where do we take it? We have to have a treatment infrastructure. We will discuss all of this in detail, but the treatment could be in an existing sewage treatment plant if you have, or it could be an independent septage treatment plant. So if you have a STP in your town, in your city, you can do what is called a combined treatment, where this septage has to be taken to the STP. We should dilute it. We have to have a controlled conditions in which you can use the sewage treatment plant to treat the septage. However, if you don't have it, you need to set up a standalone or an independent STP. And there are different technologies. This is one of the technologies we have used. This is supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to begin with, but we have expanded to almost 142 municipalities. This is a thermal-based system, thermal. It is through a pyrolysis method where the pathogens will be neutralized at a very elevated temperature of 600 to 700 degrees. And then it converts into biochar, that is nothing but a, completely burnt out material. And then this burnt out material is used as a soil amendment or a soil conditioner. This plant is totally biosafe. We have implemented in one of the towns in Warangal. As a part of this program, we'll take you, once you come here, we will have a lot of these visits where you can see some of these facilities. This is another technology we have introduced. We have multiple, we have about 6 different technologies in the state of Telangana where we work. This is a geobag technology wherein the septage is pumped into these bags after a bit of homogenization, and then the solids are retained in the bag, the liquid oozes out, and the liquid goes through liquid treatment. The solids stay in the bag for almost 40 to 45 days. You open up the bag, and then these solids are taken, and it will be subject to solar pasteurization, and then it can be used as a sort of agriculture application. This works very well. There are a lot of projects of this nature. It doesn't smell at all, contrary to the belief that we have. So I'm not going to bore you with all these technologies, but there are different technologies are available. Co-treatment plants are implemented. Combined treatment in the STP is also implemented. There's advanced versions where the energy is recovered. This is in, I think, in Senegal, where the liquid is treated through through membrane technology. And in fact, there's a famous picture of Mr. Gates drinking the water coming out of the fecal sludge treatment plant. So there are advanced versions that we have implemented all over the world right now, and we have personally implemented on many of these technologies. In all this, the behavior change communication, information education communication is super important. Citizens would not like to desludge once in 3 years or once in 2 years. We need to educate them, we need to alert them, we need to inform them, and if required, we need to strongly regulate. This is also integral to the regulatory framework that we are talking about. So we have different, in India, we have different communication solutions where you can see the fecal sludge is presented as a demon under the ground, sitting in the house, and this demon has to be captured and taken out through a truck which is notified, and then this demon will be neutralized in the fecal sludge treatment plant. So different ways of presenting, communicating, and this is very, very important to inform the citizens about the ill effects of unsafe sanitation or bad fecal sludge septage management practices. In fact, it's equally important to have strong regulations, heavy fines, penalties have to be imposed. It requires after certain level of awareness. Otherwise, without this sort of regulation, some of these public health benefits cannot be accrued only through awareness. Now, the question you may ask is, yes, this is all fine. The fecal sludge systems, we need a good regulation. We need to put in all these systems. Is the city safe? The city may not be safe because the gray water, the water coming from bathrooms, kitchens, in many cases, is bypassing the on-site septic tanks or pits. It goes directly into the water, into the drains, stormwater drains. You can see to the left. The stormwater drain is actually, in the peak summer, the stormwater drain is actually showing the flow. And why is its flow coming? Because of the gray water entering into stormwater drains. And what happens to this? It contaminates the water bodies and contaminates disease burden, mosquito breeding. So we need to start looking at, what do I do? Yes, fecal sludge septage management is good, but there's also gray water which is escaping the system, and the pollution load of this gray water is equally important to address. So what are we doing with this? What we are doing is we are promoting what is called decentralized on-site grey water management systems. You can see through a regulatory framework, we are now promoting. There is a building you can see at the back. It's a low-income housing. The wastewater coming out of this low-income housing, based on the hydraulics, this treatment infrastructure is installed there. A very compact system, and it gets treated, and then we can recycle the wastewater for gardening and other applications. This is another fantastic, it's a Jocasso system of 50 KL capacity. This is a girls' hostel. Now this girls' hostel, the wastewater has to be treated. So this is a Jocasso system we have introduced, totally under the ground, and then it treats, and then it can be used for gardening applications. So in summary, what is CWIS? What is citywide inclusive sanitation? Citywide inclusive sanitation is not about on-site system or off-site system. It is about how sanitation as a public service should be planned and implemented for achieving public health in a safe, equitable, and sustainable manner. That is citywide inclusive sanitation. It means that we need to ensure that the sanitation provision is equitable, it is safe, it is sustainable, not only environmental sustainability, but financial sustainability. And to get all this, friends, we need a responsible organization. Who is accountable for sanitation is a big question now. There is a very clear accountability for garbage management in urban areas, but there is no accountable structure, responsible entity with staffing, with funds, with functionaries for human waste management. It's all piecemeal. So the citywide inclusive sanitation is nudging city governments not only to look at technologies, not only look at provisioning the on-site systems, ensuring financial sustainability, but also create human capital in the service delivery agency to deliver it on a continuous basis. This is a typical framework that we use for citywide inclusive sanitation, which looks at equity, safety, and sustainability as goals. And to get these goals, you need a responsible organization. You need a very clear, well-defined accountability to this responsible organization, and we need resources to deliver it, both financial and human resources. This is a citywide sanitation approach. This is nothing but just visualize yourself in a municipal urban context. Municipal solid waste management has a responsible organization with sufficient budgets, with clear accountability, but not for human waste management, which is much more riskier for public health. So we need policy framework. You need functional devolution to local bodies or any other entity that you are dealing with. You need good functionaries. Functionaries means people, multidisciplinary people, engineering, town planning, behavior change communication, social development, gender experts, and you need dedicated budget line to run this system on a continuous basis, not for one day, for 1 month, or 1 year. The citywide sanitation program, looking at both black water, gray water, all of these things require sufficient budgets, sufficient human resources, and there should be sufficient powers and regulations to do it. The citywide inclusive sanitation is encouraging us to look at it in a holistic way, not as a treatment plant established, few empanelments done. That's not good enough. It's good to start with, but eventually we need to have a much more robust system to run this on a like a public service delivery, like the way power supply is running, the way water supply runs, the way mobile supply runs, mobile system runs. The sanitation requires same level of professionalization, budgets, funds, functionaries. So in the state that we work, we are now looking at dedicated budget lines, dedicated departments for managing this human waste management, both fecal sludge and grey water management. And this is just a beginning. I hope I try to communicate what the on-site sanitation is all about, why we need to look at both black water and grey water public health, why it is only sewer system is not the only solution. We need to look at alternate approaches as per our budgetary requirements, or as per our water availability requirements, as per our capacity requirements, but with a common agenda of improving quality of life, improving public health standards. The journey could be in different ways, but the goal has to be the same, which is good livability and good public health. And that's why all of us in some form or the other, if you go to your respective departments, we are all called public health officials. There's a public health engineering department, public health officer. So sanitation provision is public health, and it requires a comprehensive citywide inclusive sanitation approach to deliver it on a continuous basis. So I'll stop here. I think I'm just in time.
On time,
5:23.
yes.
We have some time, sir.
No. I just in time for any other questions.
I
Any
would like-
questions, it doesn't matter whether it is good question, bad question, foolish question. My talk could be foolish. You can say anything and get away. But I will not get you away without clarifying. Over to
Yeah,
you.
as you said, sir. So I would like to call upon Mr. Mustafizur Rahman. He actually made a comment in the box where he said it seems like an offline class and not an online class. We need a clarification. Was it a criticism or was it an appreciation?
Yeah, I would like to appreciate the approach that Professor Chari maintaining in the whole classes. And as I mentioned, I am also feeling that I am in classes seriously, sir. It's a great achievement for me and as well as the ASCI to make this platform for us. Thank you.
And he's asked for the SOP on mechanical desludging. We will share it in time. Surely we will
Thank you,
ask
sir.
for that.
Yeah.
There's one more question.
Can I ask?
Sure, absolutely. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, my name is Shah Nasser and I am from Pakistan and associated with Freshwater Network South Asia, Pakistan chapter. And thank you, sir, for a very nice and good presentation. Actually, the problem we are facing in South Asia, and particularly in Pakistan, we have not one system, like one city, sorry, one city, one approach, or one city, one system. We have cantonment board, we have private colonies, we have a posh area, like we have satellite towns and all these things, and then we have slums and poor communities and all these things. So the municipality and even the public health engineering, they have a separate responsibility for the rural area. But the municipality or the city corporation, they have very limited access to the introduce sanitation at citywide level and include all. So I have a apprehension, and even we cannot touch the cantonment board because they have their own separate system. They have cantonment officer. They have their own funding mechanism. But in Pakistan, this sanitation system is devolved. Devolved means the provincial government are responsible, like the state in the India case.
India. Yeah.
They are responsible to allocate money and implement all the services. So I think we have a technology problem. We have a no-hope problem because we are mostly civil engineers are sitting on the municipal corporation and the municipal cities, and they are the expert in civil work, in construction, in infrastructure development.
Yeah.
But they lack know how to look after the sanitation. So that's my comment. That how we include the whole, like the Chamber of Commerce, the municipal, the Trader Association, the communities, the education department, the health department, and all these to improve the public health at the city level. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shan Aziz Saab. Thank you for raising a very, very fundamental question that is daunting all our South Asian cities. You know, sometimes the problem looks very daunting because of multiple agencies involved in this, multiple interests involved in it. As you rightly said, the engineering departments would like to follow a particular approach, the cantonment boards, and private properties. So the starting point in all this is to build through FANSA a bit of political advocacy for safe sanitation. For that, there are certain tools available. There are tools available. It's called SFD, shit flow diagram, that we used. And I'm sure some of you are, I'm sure you are aware of. There are different visual tools available to drive home the point that this is a situation that we are living in, and these are the risks that we are facing. This is a starting point. We need to build that a bit of advocacy, which all of us in the development sector, we have to go through, whether it's health, education, sanitation, what is applied. So that's one approach that we have followed. We sort of, that video, sir, the video you saw, one video with the truck is discharging into the water body. Actually, I will tell you that water body connects to the drinking water source at one point. It's called summer storage tank. When we showed the video to the city manager and the mayor of the city, they were shocked. They were not aware of it. I'm telling you my own personal experience. So when this was shown to them on their face, not in a confrontational way, but this is as is situation. And unless and until we sort it out, the public health and their own political situation is compromised, then they started listening to us. In fact, their support actually was a game changer in one of the cities, CWIS cities that we started. Subsequently, we did a good planning. We mapped the existing situation, both, as you said exactly, centralized, decentralized. You have certain cantonment boards, you have gated communities where they have, gold-plated technology solutions, but they treat it and discharge, or they partial treat and discharge to slum areas. They create problem downstream. So we need to map all these things as part of this, and then use this for what I call a scientific advocacy. And the third thing that we did was we created city sanitation task force, bringing different stakeholder groups into a common agenda under the leadership of the Honorable Mayor. So then the conversation slowly opened. In fact, it took us almost 3 years for the Warangal to reach a certain improvement fix, and then it took off subsequently. In fact, now the civil society groups have been constituted in Warangal, and it's getting replicated elsewhere. The CBOs are actually driving the agenda now because they've understood the risks that they are experiencing. So the CBO involvement is equally important. So as we progress in this course, we will narrate you the sequence, step-by-step processes some cities have gone through. I'm not saying it can be replicated, but we may find some commonalities and some common ideas for us to replicate. That's all I would say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Mr. Kabir Rajbhandari. Mr. Kabir, you can actually put up the question yourself.
Thank you.
I read it?
Thank you very much. And this is Kabir from Nepal. I think the question might be a little bit cynical, as we are talking about city sanitations and we are talking about urban sanitation technologies. As we operate in this South Asian context in different countries, and all the countries are not only limited to cities and urban towns, and there are also rural areas. So looking at the broad framework of CWIS and its service outcomes and functional outcomes, which are equally valid not only for urban, but also for rural context. That's why, Professor Sari, it's very interesting. It is always interesting to be to be an audience of your session, and there's no doubt of saying this at any time. So my question is, when we are looking at this CWIS framework, can we adopt this framework when you look at in terms of managing sanitations in rural areas to make safe, so that we could contribute to achieve SDG 6.2 from rural perspective also? So of course it is applicable. We are talking about this approach in urban.
Kabir, I think you raised a very important point. This framework, as well as the steps, learnings of urban, can be used for rural, and rural in fact can move faster than urban because the density and other slum related challenges are somewhat limited. In fact, the implementation solutions are much easier. The only costly component in this is a treatment plan. In fact, now in most of the Indian context, we have what is called urban-rural integration programs. So there is a common sharing arrangement between the treatment infrastructure is shared between, it is situated in urban areas, but used by the rural communities at no cost. These are the policies issued. Now, if you don't have a treatment infrastructure in rural, one can establish at the district level, as a common treatment facility, or use the nearby urban settlement FSTPs, and that can also be done. But your point is right. Now, the learning is that we are now looking at both urban and rural from the same lens. The quality of life, the quality of sanitation should not be different just because I live in rural. Just because I live in urban, it doesn't mean I should be privileged. Citizens have democratic rights. Citizens have a single vote, whether you are in urban or rural. So they should get equal franchise, equal support. So in fact, the progress in India, at least, is much faster in rural than in urban areas right now.
Yeah. So basically, yes, thank you, Professor Sari. So basically, when we compare this urban context and rural context and looking from CWIS framework, so basically the defer part in two is the sanitation system that we adopt in rural and urban, and that's a major point of departure how we adopt this. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. So this is basically just to get more evidence.
You are super right.
In terms of
absolutely point.
Thank you.
And we will have a session on rural-urban integration as we progress. It's very, very important.
Yeah.
As I said, diseases have no boundary. They don't know what is urban and what is panchayat and what is municipality, unfortunately. The pollutant will go irrespective of whether it is urban, rural. So we have to protect ourselves. Just because some administratively we have drawn a boundary that this is rural, this is urban. The diseases have no such boundaries.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? The platform is left open for any other questions from any of the participants, if you have any. We are already on time. If no questions are clicking right at the moment, you can always use the Slido, or you can put in your questions in the WhatsApp group. We would be happy to answer your questions.
I have one question to ask about the LMS.
Yes, sure.
I want to know how many participants have started using the LMS or the Slido that we have posted.
LMS is Learning Management System.
Learning Management System.
Lot of material is available. Just get used to it. I know all of you are busy professionals, working professionals. It's not easy, but I think we will try to break the inertia a little bit and start getting into the LMS, Learning Management System, and Slido. We'll be very, very happy. And use WhatsApp for anything that you need.
Great.
And can you explain, Dr. Banerjee, when is the next session? What time? What is the topic?
Yeah, our next session is on 22nd July, Saturday, where we will actually take up the question that has been raised by Mr. Shah from Pakistan. We would be going into panel discussion with CWIS practitioners around the globe. We would have people from Africa, we would have people from Bangladesh, we would have people from India who would be sharing their experiences, city experiences, as and how they have taken up citywide inclusive sanitation and what are the best principles and best practices and how they have taken it forward. That would be our next session.
Yeah, sorry. Very importantly, everything has to be divided into step-by-step approach. What is the steps that they followed so that we can implement it? So we will be getting into the details of a simple approach of operationalizing citywide inclusive sanitation improvement in a very complex environments that we all live in. And that's the purpose of this sharing of good practices. Dr. Banerjee.
That's all, sir. That's all. Yeah, as some of you are saying you have already started using LMS and some of you are confessing that you have not begun, please do. Please do. If you are facing any difficulties to get into that, we are there. The guidance book has already been, the note has already been shared. Please feel free to get back to us. We would be happy to help you out in accessing the systems. And of course, as and when, time and again, your questions are welcome in WhatsApp. And then, of course, we would be sharing you some pre-reads as the next session nears in. Please do go through those pre-reads. It will help you gear up and be a part of the session actively rather than taking you from the roots. That's all, sir. That's all for today.
Thank you. So have a good evening or good morning, where different geographies, and stay in touch. And
this time I'm avoiding saying morning or evening. I'm avoiding saying that. I don't know where he
Thank
went.
you, and good
Thank
evening.
you. Thank you very much. And then catch up with you on Saturday.